when I was there,
Let me show you this.
the count had gone over 800.
All right, let's go and see how it looks. Zoom out and zoom out. See that?
Yeah, you got to kind of pay attention as to where everything.
I'm here to introduce our guest today. Okay, he's not quite ready, so I'll proceed with some of my announcements as I go back and get my notes. Guess I should have told Alan I was getting ready to kick it off here. The Public Service Committee has put out some flyers on the table relating to the Guardian Ad Litem Holiday Gift Collection Program. I encourage you to take a look at that. The Courthouse Kids Center has requested that I announce that you can designate the Courthouse Kids Center as a specified beneficiary on United Way contributions to whatever degree you choose. The district court judges have asked me to announce and invite all of you to attend a party that they are hosting in honor of retiring Chief District Court Judge Rusty Sherrill, which will take place on his last day on the bench, which is November the 30th. The party is at 5:30 p.m. at Tir Danag Restaurant, which is across the street from Moore Square on Blunt Street. I'm sure many of you will want to go by and congratulate Judge Sherrill on his retirement. I must say, personally, part of my motivation will be curiosity. Judge Sherrill has served over 20 years as a judge in Wake County. He's endured many of elections, as perhaps some of you here today are attempting to endure. And that day, November 30th, will be his last day sitting as a judge on the bench. And I just want to go to see how much he can drink. At this point, I'll call on Marshall Happer for a brief announcement.
I'd like to see that too. Thank you, William. I'd just like to invite all of you. The Bar Association is a little short of mailing expense money, so instead of mailing everybody a letter to invite you to join the sports and entertainment section on December the 8th at the Bar Center, we decided to deliver a personal invitation today. We passed out a little circular if you didn't get it, but it'll be a lot more interesting than a lot of other things that you may have to do in the practice, and we'd sure like to have you join us. Thank you.
Guest today, like Deborah Sasser has a guest. Deborah?
I'm Deborah Sasser. I'm legal counsel for the Guardian Ad Litem program, so I will encourage you to look at your flyers. But I'd like to introduce Cheryl. Cheryl is coordinator of the Pro Bono project for the Guardian Ad Litem program.
Paul Ridgway has a guest.
Scott Sturfield has recently moved to Raleigh from Pittsburgh, near Pittsburgh, where he was graduate in 1988. He's been practicing litigation up in that area, moving out of his life and his children, looking for litigation.
Welcome. Tom Wilson has a guest. Tom. Steve Smith would like to introduce a new member.
The honor falls to me, the Reverend to introduce Roger Smith Jr. He is related to at least 3 members of this organization. He's the lucky husband of Leanne Smith. He's the nephew of Wade Smith, and he's the son of Roger and Bonnie Smith. And he's going to work at Carrington Smith.
pleasure to introduce Stephen Hartzell Jordan, who joined our firm this fall. Brooks Pierce. Stephen's a graduate of the University of Houston and UNC Law School. We're very pleased to have him with us. And also Ed Turlington, who really needs no introduction, is a renewing member of this association. Bill Bradley's lost his RFK, and we're glad to have him with Brooks Pierce. Thank you.
Those were the guests that we had checked in. Are there other guests that need to be introduced? Anyone? No?
Today, November the 7th, 2000, is a very important day. It's an important day for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that today, the Wake County Bar Association will present the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award to John McMillan. This award is presented to one Wake County attorney each year who epitomizes the highest degree of professionalism. Only one award is presented each year, and only one attorney is selected out of the 3,000 attorneys in Wake County. This award is the only award that our Bar Association presents each year. It is the highest honor that our Bar Association can bestow on a Wake County attorney. The award was established 10 years ago by the Wake County Bar Association in recognition that professionalism is defined best by example or role models. Each year, the award is presented and a new attorney is named. The award has grown in prestige. This year is no exception. At this time, I would like to introduce or recognize the previous recipients of the award. And before I do this, I would ask that each of them stand when their name is called and that you hold your applause until I've completed naming the list. Again, if you will wait 1 second. Robert L. McMillan, William Joslin, Judge Robert L. Farmer, Charles F. Blanchard, James K. Dorsett, Jr., Wright T. Dixon, Jr., Charles H. Young, Wade M. Smith, Daniel T. Blue, Jr. I'd ask you to give them a round of applause. At this point, I'll call on Wade Smith, who is the chair of the Professionalism Award Committee.
William, thank you very much. This is such an important day in the year of our Bar Association. And there are a few special guests I'd like to introduce before I introduce the traditional two speakers who will talk with you about the great accomplishments of John McMillan. This award is named for a truly legendary citizen in North Carolina and a great favorite among the judges who have served us, Joseph Branch. And his son is here today. Jim Branch, and I'd like to ask him to stand and for us to give him a round of applause. Jim, we'd love to have you. There are a few other people that I would like to especially recognize. They are good friends, family members of John McMillan. One is the charismatic leader of the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. John has worked so hard to make that museum what it is, and Betsy Bennett is here. Betsy, would you stand so we can recognize you? And John's wonderful wife, a great citizen in her own right, Angie McMillan. Angie, would you stand? John outmarried himself, and everyone knew it. John's parents are here, Dr. Robert McMillan and Dorothy McMillan. Would you stand so we can say hello to you, please? Bonnie Smith, Roger's wife. Roger's one of the introducers, and Bonnie's here. So Bonnie, you should say hello to us. Please stand. And now it's my special pleasure to introduce the two speakers. Both of them so very well qualified. They are each dear friends of John McMillan's. They have known John for many, many years. The first speaker today is Robert Jordan. And all of you know Robert. He was Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina from 1984 to 1988. He was candidate for governor in 1988. He is a businessman and truly one of North Carolina's great citizens. And the other introducer is Roger Smith, who is a member of this association for 32 years. He's a former president of the Wake County Bar Association. He's one of North Carolina's great lawyers, and he is a great citizen. Let me recognize Robert Jordan first. Robert?
Thank you, Wade Smith. When I walked in a little bit ago, John said, "I'm not sure you're safe in this group," and I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I didn't know there were 3,000 lawyers in Raleigh, though. But I know many of you personally, and I consider it a distinct honor to have been asked to talk about John for just a few minutes, and it will not be long. Seeing the company that he's joining here today, I know what you think about the people that you bestow this honor upon, and I have to say I completely agree with you in John's selection. I knew your father, Joe Branch. Chief Justice Branch would say this is a good selection. He knew John, and I'm sure that he would be pleased with this selection today. Roger Smith and I have been together trying to figure out what nice things we could say about John. In fact, 72 hours ago, we were in an airplane coming back from Africa, and we spent 16 days trying to think about good things to say about John McMillan. We couldn't even decide on who would go first. But more seriously, I've known John McMillan for 25 years. I guess meeting the first time when I came to the State Senate, Howard Manning introduced me to John in 1976, 1977. I know him as a friend, as a business lawyer, as a family advisor, and as a public servant. John McMillan is an exceptional and good human being. Of course, his mother and his father and Angie are due most of the credit for that. But he is that. As counsel for the office of Lieutenant Governor during my tenure, he was instrumental in making most of the good things happen that happened. Whenever there was tough legislation to be handled and opposing views we had a big room called the conference room at the time, and John would end up meeting with everybody individually and collectively. And without a doubt, with all my experiences with people and people who negotiate over the years, he's the very best. The North Carolina Heritage Trust Fund is here today because of John McMillan. Of course, because of Bill Joslin and Catherine Skinner and others. But he was able to negotiate with the opponents and the proponents and help us figure out where to get the money to support that trust fund. The North Carolina Phosphate Detergent Ban was headed down the tube. He was able to get the Secretary Holman, now Secretary Holman, and others, and that, I guess originally it was for Wake County and Durham County, but that he's due major credit for. He did major work with the legislature, both the House and the Senate, in North Carolina Teachers and Fellows Program, North Carolina Housing Trust Fund, and the Rural Economic Development Center is what it is today because of a lot of the work that John did. But I think in particular, Mr. Speaker, John did me the greatest service when he was able to help me keep my sanity while I was negotiating with Liston and Billy. I was also amazed at the many things that John was involved in particular with legal services. I know what he did to help the North Carolina Legal Services program go. I know what he did when he went to Washington to try to get additional funds for that. And I know John, being a lawyer, has to get a certain amount of revenue to keep Howard and everybody happy. But I know a lot of the things that he did in public service were done gratis, and he's due a lot of credit for that. For me, not only in the legislative arena, but in the business arena, he's been invaluable. We've had to negotiate contracts with the Japanese trading houses, Mitsui. More recently, we've negotiated an agreement with the German firm, Homenite, that's located in Mount Gilead, bringing the largest industry ever to Montgomery County, 155 jobs, $110 million. He and his firm have been involved in negotiating contract difficulties that I've had with American equipment manufacturers. And I guess one of the main things that I noticed about John when I was working with him in the legislature and also in the business world, he's a quick study. I've never seen anybody, particularly in the legislative area, that could take all the factors and put them together and put it into definitive language that we could go forward with without taking several days. He did the things that need to be done, and he did them quickly. Also in the 1980s, not only has John worked to help the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, but the building for the North Carolina Museum of History, he was a major force in helping us put together the ideas and helped put the money together. His counsel and assistance to my personal family has been invaluable. But since my daughter Janie is here today, I will not go into the details. He served all three of our children in different ways. The North Carolina Museum of Natural Science, I talked to John about that several years ago, I guess about 10 years ago. And I remember him talking about how much that meant to the Boy Scouts when he was a scout leader and while he was bringing them through the museum. I've also had the chance to observe what's happened over the last 9 years. I know a lot of people have done a lot of work, but he's been instrumental in it being what it is today. It would not be what it is today without John McMillan. As chairman, he helped raise over $20 million of private funds and was almost single-handedly instrumental in seeing that ACRO is now in that building and that we have a museum of international acclaim. He's a competitor, doesn't like to lose. An outstanding lawyer, and as I mentioned, both thorough and prompt. His friends say he is a joy to work with. His opponents call him formidable. As was mentioned earlier, the person you're honoring here today needs to be a role model. There is no better. He's a role model to the scouts. He's a role model for his peers. He's a role model for the legal community. And particularly, he's a role model for his friends. They say in life that we become, by a large part, what we experience, and that we are the sum of our experiences. I've been blessed to have gained from my experiences from John McMillan like no other person. And you've done a good job, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert Jordan. And now Roger Smith.
Thank you very much, and Bob, I appreciate your remarks and share your feelings about John. I'm honored to be a part of this moment as the Wake County Bar Association bestows its highest honor, the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award, on John Birchfield McMillan. I first met John in Chapel Hill on the first day of the first year of law school in the late summer of 1964. John had just married Angie Stokes, and they had moved into a small duplex in Chapel Hill. And they were about 3 blocks from the little house in which my wife Bonnie and I had just moved. And as a matter of fact, from that day to this, John and Angie, Bonnie and I have lived within 3 blocks of John and Angie from that day till this. The 4 of us became great friends. We weathered the storms of law school together. And in 1967, after receiving good news from the bar, we shared the rent on a U-Haul van and moved our meager belongings to Raleigh, where John had taken a position with Manning, Fulton, and Skinner. It was a small van, but it took us 2 trips, I'll say that. So for 36 years, I've known John as a classmate, colleague, neighbor, companion, and dear friend. And now, on this occasion, I've come to report to you on what I know of this man. He is, Bob, a wonderful choice for this award. His life and career reflect the highest traditions of professionalism. He is honest and fair with everyone, clients, lawyers, and courts. He is a vigorous, tenacious, immaculately well-prepared advocate, and he gives freely of his time to improve the profession, the courts, and the community at large. He does all these things in the outside world, and he does them so well because of the kind of person he is. He's great on the outside because he is greatly good on the inside. Underlying all that John does is his enthusiasm for life. He approaches each day with his arms wide open, eager to embrace the good that he knows is out there waiting to embrace him. There's a certain innocence about how John approaches life, eager and ready to go, expecting the best from everyone, like a child standing in the crib first thing in the morning, looking around with a big smile on his face, saying, "Okay, let's go see what we can do today." He behaves as if he fully appreciates that life is a gift, and he wants to make every day count. John's belief that life matters is reflected in a reverence for living things. Every plant, flower, fish of the sea, beast of the field, every fowl of the air, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. He and Angie live in a house by a creek, deep in the woods, surrounded by trees and bushes and plants of every description. They regularly entertain hawks and owls, frogs and turtles, raccoons and opossums, chipmunks and squirrels. They simply have planted themselves in the natural world, and together they have hiked and camped all over North Carolina. John's a charter member of the Will Turner Hiking Club, and some of whose members are here today, and I'm sure that they are simply hoping for another mountain to climb with John. The love of living things has led John and Angie to immerse themselves in the life of Africa. Through the years, they have spent months there. And late Saturday night, they returned, as Bob said, from their 11th trip. John has given many years of service to the Nature Conservancy. He's been on the Board of Trustees for 10 years and served as chair of the board for the last 3 of those years. He's just completed a 10-year term on the board of directors of the Friends of the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and served a 2-year term as president in 97 and 98. John brings that enthusiasm and reverence for life to everything he does, and much of what he does involves service to other people. John has been active in the bar at every level. Presently, he's serving as chair of the North Carolina Bar Association's Legislative Advisory Committee. He's a member of the State Bar Council. He served 9 years on the State Bar's Disciplinary Hearing Commission, was chair of the commission for 4 years. He was a member of the committee that rewrote the rules of professional conduct and a member of the committee that rewrote the rules governing disciplinary procedure. He served as president of the Wake County Bar and distinguished himself as chair of the Long Range Planning Committee from 1990 through 1993. John and Angie have been faithful members of White Memorial Presbyterian, where John has served as the deacon, elder, and clerk of session. And for more than 20 years, John was a scoutmaster for Troop 395 at the church, and he presently serves on the Occoneechee Council Executive Board. As Bob pointed out, John concentrates much of his law practice representing an impressive list of individuals and businesses before the North Carolina General Assembly. And for the past 11 years, as I understand, I may be wrong about the years, Melissa Pershing, for the last 11 years, John has also represented Legal Services of North Carolina before the General Assembly, and he has done whatever is necessary to obtain the funding necessary for that, for Legal Services' existence, and he's done it all free of charge and without any fanfare. John and Angie have freely shared their love and knowledge of Africa with others, organizing and leading trips, including a climb to the summit of Mount Kenya. On their recent trip to Kenya, from which they returned Saturday night, John and Angie led 18 Friends of the Museum of Natural Sciences. John has an absolute tireless commitment and devotion to those things which he undertakes. John's uniqueness lies not only in the breadth and depth of what he does, but in the incredible energy and stamina with which he does them. He simply does not quit until the job is done. During the 20 years he served as scoutmaster, for example, he took his troop on an overnight camping trip once a month without fail, winter and summer, rain or shine. You do the math. 20 years, once a month, in the woods with those kids. The people at Legal Services say of John, he is simply awesome. And when John completed his service as on the Disciplinary Hearing Commission, the staff, in a spontaneous outpouring of gratitude for the great job John had done, gave him a gift they knew he would enjoy. It was a 2-day whitewater rafting trip down the Gauley River in West Virginia. But nothing exemplifies John's devotion to what he believes in like his work as a member of the Board of Directors of the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences Friends. The museum, which as Bob pointed out is now in a great new facility, is one of the fine natural sciences museums in the country, the largest in the Southeast. Lots of people, as Bob said, worked long and hard to make that museum a reality. But I have it on good authority from those very people who worked long and hard that that museum would not exist but for the efforts of John McMillan. He conceived and effectuated its legal and administrative structure. He worked tirelessly to obtain support from the governor and the General Assembly. He raised thousands of dollars for exhibits. He drafted and reviewed countless contracts. He accompanied personnel from the museum around the country pursuing dinosaurs. And he negotiated the contract by which the museum acquired Acrocanthosaurus, which I believe is the only Acrocanthosaurus on exhibit in the world today. Last spring, as the museum's April 7th opening date approached, John spent evenings and weekends at the facility, doing whatever needed to be done, including installing carpet. During the first few furious days of the opening, John was there greeting people and conducting tours. As the Easter weekend approached with the staff exhausted from the opening, it appeared that the museum shop would not be open on Easter Monday because there would be no one there to operate. John volunteered to operate the shop, opened it, greeted people, and made sales. There's just no end to John's creative energy. As the recent trip to Kenya approached, the one about which Bob spoke, John hatched the idea that this would be a great opportunity to make a film for the museum. He personally persuaded WRAL to trust him with a new high-definition TV camera that was valued, I think, at about $130,000. He learned how to operate this complicated piece of equipment. He negotiated its departure from and return to this country with the United States Customs authorities. He obtained insurance. He drafted necessary contracts. He carried this massive camera and tripod in taxis, through airports, on small river boats, and on safari Land Rovers. He filmed the African landscape, schools, people, children, and wildlife, including the creeping things that creep upon the earth. And he did this for the better part of 2 weeks. The ultimate outcome of this project should be magnificent indeed. Early viewings of the film indicate that John had the focus right and held the camera steady. This certainly will turn out to be, I believe, a great contribution to the museum's mission of opening windows on the world for the people of North Carolina. Finally, I must say that John's most endearing quality is loyalty. Loyalty to clients and causes, to be sure. But on the personal level, unshakable loyalty to family, friends, and colleagues. His friendships are everlasting. If you became John's friend in high school, undergraduate school, law school, or yesterday in court, you're his friend today. If you mess up along the way, it matters not. You are John's friend. When bad times come, he's at your doorstep to lift your spirits and do whatever needs doing. When good times come, he is there to offer a hearty toast and share your joy. Through 36 years of knowing John, I've watched him as he has distinguished himself at every turn. Rising from the landscape of life, like Mount Kenya rises from the plains of John's beloved East Africa. Sturdy, broad-shouldered, enduring. And to be sure, just as the beauty of Mount Kenya is a visible manifestation of the inner forces that shaped it, so the day-to-day good that John does is a visible manifestation of the inner forces that shape him. Enthusiasm for life, reverence for life, unselfishness, devotion to duty, loyalty to family and friends. So to all of you, John's colleagues and friends, I am pleased to confirm what you expected, and that is that based on my faithful and careful observations of this man, the Chief Justice Joseph Branch Professionalism Award today is being placed in strong, deserving hands. And to you, John's partners and colleagues at Manning, Fortson, and Skinner, we thank you for allowing John to give so generously of his time and energy to the bar and the greater community. And to you, John's parents, Dot and Roy, we thank you for giving this man to the world. And to you, Angie Stokes McMillan, we thank you for sharing the sweet spirit of your wonderful husband with all of us. And to you, John, I thank you for including me in this day. And I thank you for 36 years of friendship. A lot has happened in the years since we loaded that van and headed for the capital city. And now here we are. You're being honored by your friends and colleagues at the bar. What a great day. I'm so proud. I congratulate you upon receiving this award, and I honor you for all that you have been, all that you are, and all that you are yet to be. Thank you.
to present you the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award presented to John B. McMillan by the Wake County Bar Association, November 7, 2000. Joe Branch, we know you're proud. John.
Well, thank you all very much. And I thank my good friends, Bob Jordan and Roger Smith, for their kind words and their friendship over many, many years. You're both very special, and you know that. They sure can lay it on thick, I know that. Roger is vying for the title of Key Grip in the movie about Africa. He actually helped carry some of that stuff through those taxi cabs. I'm pleased that my wonderful parents are here today. Last July the 12th, they celebrated their 61st wedding anniversary. And they're now at Springmore Retirement Community here in Raleigh, close by. Dad practiced medicine in Moore County, Southern Pines, for 40 years. When I was growing up, Dad would visit patients in 2 hospitals every morning for a full day of seeing patients in the office. After a family supper, he would make 6 to 10 to 12 house calls and revisit the patients in the hospital every night, seldom returning home before 10 or 11 o'clock. And that was a time before the emergency rooms had staff physicians, and so he would go out at least once every night to visit somebody who was sick. He was a caring and compassionate professional and was loved by his parents. He also served on the school board and the bank board and various other elder in the church and various other activities. Mom ran the house, raised 4 children, was Dad's support, and did extensive volunteer work in the community herself. I spent the first 3 years of my life with Mom alone while Dad was overseas during World War II. And we have been best pals ever since. No person had better role models growing up than I did with my parents. My 3 siblings came along after the war. They are all college graduates. My sister Julia is vice chair of the Department of Pediatrics at Johns Hopkins University Medical School. She is the editor of a leading pediatric journal, a leading pediatric textbook. She's immediate past chair of the American Board of Pediatrics. She's authored 3 books and raised 3 children. We grew up in a home filled with love, and we remain a close family. Angie and I have been married for 36 years, and we share common interests. She has been supportive of my professional career and outside activities, while at the same time pursuing her own successful career, first with the State Mental Health Agency, then with the Department of Health and Human Services for the state, and now with the Nature Conservancy as their government affairs person. She is more than my wife. She is my companion and my friend. My third family is made up of the lawyers and staff with Manning, Fulton, and Skinner. When I started as an associate, the lawyers in the firm were Howard Manning, Charlie Fulton, Bill Skinner, Marshall Happer, and Jack Gully. Each of them became and continue to be my role models. They all worked hard, put their interests of clients first. They were and continue to be the consummate professionals. I tried to emulate them in every way, except for their vacation practices. When I came and joined the firm, I don't think any one of them had taken more than a week's vacation in a year to go to the beach. I'd been there about 6 years, and Angie and I struck off for Africa for 3 weeks, and followed that 2 years later by another 3-week vacation to Kenya. A few years after that, Howard and Mariana Manning went with us to Kenya and Tanzania, and by that time, the policy had taken hold. Our firm has continued to grow, and I'm proud of our lawyers and staff who enable us to do the work. I enjoy the practice of law, and particularly being a member of the Wake County Bar Association. This is a very professional group of people who work and help the community and the state in so many different ways. I'm proud of this Bar Association and its leadership and the accomplishments that you have made. I thank you for this award from the bottom of my heart. I thank the presenters, Wade and his committee, and I'm very humbled by it all. Thank you.
Before we adjourn the meeting, I have a few more announcements, and you'll be happy to know I got my notes with me here this time. We have Wake County Bar is sponsoring another CLE program on November the 16th at the Wake County Courthouse in courtroom 8C, beginning at 5:15 p.m. This one will consist of 3 district court judges discussing various aspects of criminal defense or prosecution too, I suppose, law. The holiday party is December the 8th, 7:30 p.m. at Sisters Garden here in Raleigh. The next meeting that we have is December the 12th at the North Raleigh Hilton, not here, North Raleigh Hilton, beginning at 12:30 p.m., the election meeting. The memorial service for lawyers who have passed away this past year is going to be in courtroom 10C on December the 15th. December the 15th at 2:30 p.m. The YLD, the Young Lawyers, have their holiday party the day before the main holiday party. Theirs is on December the 7th at 6 p.m. at the Poorhouse. With that, unless there's any further business to come before us, the meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.